Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Scottish Football Podcast. Ahead of the new season, we are going through each Premiership club and asking what their fans can expect from the season ahead. And in this episode, we are focusing on Dundee.
It's 15 years since you took charge of a top flight game here in Scotland. You didn't realise that, did you?
I didn't, Ryan, and it's kind of worrying. You know,
nothing's changed in that time.
Yeah, there's a lot more grey here. Let me assure you that.
Cross into the near post, it's 2-0! It's gone in! Wesley celebrates! And quite sensationally here at Dens Park, it is Dundee 2, Celtic 0!
We've had to deal with setbacks, adversity, but we keep going. So really, really proud of the group. To finish 8th in what has been a hugely challenging season is a decent achievement.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
And I am joined to chat all things Dundee by career sports writer George Cran. Morning, George. Are you looking forward to the league getting back started? I know at this point, at time of recording, Dundee are back in League Cup action, but you excited to get back to business?
Morning, yeah. Can't wait, really, although it is Celtic away on the first game of the season, so it may be a slow start, but really interested to see what Steven Pressley does with this team in his second season after troublesome at times, but in the end, fairly decent start to life at Dens Park.
And alongside us as well, Robin Grimmond, musician, and I'm hearing potentially the first ever guest on BBC's Off the Ball. Morning, Robin. How are you looking forward to the new season, new league season? I know, as I said, League Cup's been started already, but getting back to Premiership business.
Morning, Charlotte. Yeah, it was certainly an up and down season last year, but I think I've got a feeling that maybe Steven Presley's had his difficult second season than his first season. I'm hoping that he's learned enough and got through the season pretty well to maybe push on this season, finish a bit higher.
Yeah, well, we are just over a fortnight into July. As we're recording this, teams are back in League Cup action, as I mentioned, as we start to gear up for the new league season. Let's just look back, though, to last season. Dundee had a pretty torrid start to their League Cup campaign this time last year. We're kind of one of the teams tipped to be relegated. George, how do you reflect on last season as a whole and kind of where Dundee ended up finishing?
Well, that's what you'd call these days a transition season, I guess, because there was a big, massive change behind the scenes. Obviously, Tony Docherty left and was replaced by Steven Pressley, and a whole new staff came in, and a whole new structure, and basically a whole new squad. So, kind of looking back, we should maybe have realised that it would take quite a while for them to get going. Maybe it took longer than a lot of people realised last season. But once Steven Pressley got his kind of feet under the table and Dundee got into their strides around Christmas time, they looked like a really good side. Lots of really exciting players, particularly the guys out wide. Cam Congreve and Tony Ugan. Some really fun football to watch. And in the end, they were fairly safe before the end, which hasn't always been the case for Dundee. So in terms of the grand scheme of things, it was a very decent season, particularly in our first season under a new manager with a complete change of system and obviously a new squad. Lots of good players to enjoy, and some of them are stuck around for this season. So looking forward to seeing what can happen with those guys.
What about Steven Pressley, Robin? Because again, this time last year, he was kind of being one of the ones tipped to be the first manager to be sacked, but he seems to have turned the opinion of the fans around. He obviously turned the season around, ended up being a decent enough finish, but how's his position looking heading into the new campaign, do you think?
It's pretty strong considering the start they had. The worry was that the first few weeks, if not months, there was very little improvement, despite good results away to Rangers and at home to Celtic. Generally speaking, there wasn't much happening, but all of a sudden they got 3 victories in 2 weeks, and he was a hero. Because previously, there were a lot of Dundee fans were wanting it, the board out and Steven Pressley out and all that as well, and 3 good results, sort of out of the blue, I would say, changed things around completely. And even although we had a couple of bad runs before the end of the season, sort of the fans were on board with what Presley was doing, and everybody seemed to love him. The players seemed to love him, and the fans, because of I think the couple of good runs I had, the fans were pretty patient, especially for Dundee fans. The end of the season sort of finished on a high, and I think it's continued into this year, and we're hoping that his experience as a manager for the first time in 10 years last year is bode well, and certainly the way we're playing at the moment now compared with a year ago is like chalk and cheese.
One of the other things I think Steven Pressley mentioned was he kind of didn't want the club to have this massive turnover of players every year, and having to almost rebuild the squad every season. As things stand, I think 10 exits, 5 incomings. George, how positive are you feeling about the position the squad is in at this moment, and how much work do you think still needs done before the league campaign gets underway?
There's still plenty of work to be done. I think Steven Pressley wants at least 4 more signings, possibly 5. So, and I would expect most of them to be first choice options. So yeah, I don't think he's had his wish this summer in terms of getting away from the massive changes. It's obviously been just part of the summer because Luke Graham departing for a club record fee to Stoke City, that was always on the books. Billy Kmetio leaving for Charlton for around 500,000 wasn't really expected, I think. They always knew it. I mean, every player has the price, and that was always a potential that could happen, but they were hoping not to have to really completely rebuild their backline with goalkeeper John McCracken also going. So there is some really important recruitment still to be done. The good news is that this summer we've not actually seen a loan player come in. Every single player that's been signed has been on a permanent deal, and that means that a lot of this squad, providing everything goes well and in terms of the way the guys settle in at Dundee, this squad should be pretty much in place next summer, and they can kick on and really build with what they've got at the moment.
Yeah, Robin, does that give you confidence from a fan point of view? I know obviously Dundee have used loan players a lot, and you have players come in who really impress and then they go back to their parent club at the end of the season. But I suppose, as George mentioned there, some actual permanent signings in the door must be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And generally speaking, the players they've brought in are looking good. Certainly the new signings so far are bedding in pretty well. But as George said, they had the guts ripped out of the defence, so they've got a lot of work to do on that, and they've looked a bit shaky the first 2 games of the season, but they have looked good going forward, and they seem to have one of the players they signed last year, Joe Bevan, has really stepped up, and he's looking a real find. And Charlie Riley, who's signed on for another year, he's playing well too. But I think that they also had the guy Jan Bezier they got from Slovenian club. He got 20 minutes, I think, last night, and he looked really good. So things are looking much better than they did last year at this time, but there's a lot of work to be done on the defence, I would suggest, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on that actually, George. You mentioned it, the likes of Luke Graham, Billy Kmetio, big names departing, John McCracken, as you said, Trevor Carson as well from the goalkeeping department. How did Dundee go about fixing that, replacing that, and putting a proper spine back together?
Well, they have actually already begun with that. I think Owen Bevan, they've signed from Bournemouth, just made his debut at the weekend. He's had real injury problems, so there is a risk with that. But in terms of his ability and the performances we've seen so far, he looks like a really good start to rebuilding that key part of the team. They do still have Ryan Astley, who's had a really strong season last season, and I think there's more to come from him as well. I think the idea was that it would probably be Ryan Astley and Billy Kmetio would be maybe the first choice centre-backs for this season. So Bevan coming in, he's a left footer, that helps plug that gap, but they obviously need at least two more there. In terms of the goalkeeper, they are quite happy at the moment with Kieran O'Hara. He did quite well when he came in at the end of last season, but they definitely want to bring in a number one, and it's a huge position, really. That's one you really have to get right. If you don't get it right, it can really affect your season, as we've seen in past years. So it's a big job, but we've seen with the players that have recruited last summer and this summer that they've shown they've got an eye for a player, and they can get deals done that improve this team. So it's always a big task to have to go again and do that every summer. But so far, the way Dundee are working at the moment, I think we have confidence that they can do that.
Yeah, I did also see Steven Pressley saying recently, he's happy to kind of be patient with transfers and kind of wait for the right signings. Robin, from a fan's point of view, do you think Dundee supporters will be happy to be patient? I mean, I know football fans are never very patient, but will they be happy to wait for transfers, or do you think they'll be kind of eager to get new bodies in the door?
I think we're always eager, but I think Steven Presley's bought himself, a lot of goodwill from last year because he didn't panic when everybody else around about him were panicking, and the players so far that they brought in look pretty. As George says, Owen Bevan looks a really good player, even though he hasn't played much the last couple of seasons, but he's stuck out. And some of the guys that are there that I mentioned before are stepping up now. So I think he'll definitely get a bit of time. I mean, it helps if you have a reasonable start to the League Cup campaign, and they're playing. They're scoring goals, which makes a difference. Even although they're not 100% convincing during games, especially at the back for obvious reasons, the fact they're scoring goals is buys you a bit more time as well. And I think we're quite hopeful that the season, the signings they get in before the start of the season for league campaign will sort of strengthen that, and although we do have Celtic away the first game of the season, it's quite a hard start to have, but we had a reasonably, I suppose, easy start last season compared, and we didn't do well at all. So I think we're in a better place now, obviously, than a few weeks ago. But fans change very quickly. But I think the fans are prepared to be, give Steven a fair bit of time because of what he did last year.
One of the players who is still at the club, striker Ashley Hay. George, I'm intrigued by him because 4 goals in 29 appearances in the league last season. He's scored in both League Cup games so far, I believe. What are you expecting him to be like this term? He seems to be kind of an enigmatic player.
I think he'll kick on. I think I really like Ashley. I think he's got loads to offer. He's obviously been at Brentford, where Steven Pressley worked with him in the B team there, and he's come up here and stepped into first team football, and took him a wee while last season, but once he got that first goal, he really started to blossom, and he obviously scored a winner at Tannadice, which always helps with the Dundee fans. I think he started off this season great. He scored a couple in pre-season as well. I think there'll be some surprised centre-backs this season when they're maybe a fair bit taller than Ashley Hay, but get beat in the air, because he's very, very good in the air. He's got some leap on him. I think they've obviously got competition. Simon Murray being the skipper, and they've got Joe Wesley as well, who's another fine young striker. I think he's got a lot to come from him. So there's competition there, but yeah, I think Ashley Hay's ready to really kick on, and I think he definitely wants more goals. Having spoken to him this season, obviously he's a striker, he's going to say that, but he's going about his business in a way that suggests he's going to get more goals. I think it could be a good season for him.
Yeah, as I mentioned, he scored last night in the 5-0 win over Annan in the League Cup. Also, Robin, Dundee, 2 wins in their first 2 League Cup games. How positive has that made you from a fan's point of view?
Yeah, it's been heartening because they're not a finished article by any manner of means, but they're scoring and the goals are getting shared out quite widely, and it's still they're still a work in progress, but you can see from even some of the players from last season that they're kicking on. And Ashley Hay is he's fast. He can take a tackle for a reasonably wee guy, and he's grey in the air. So I think he could be the first choice this year. But then he needs competition around about him, and he does have that. And I think from the start anyway, I mean, you can see there's already been shocks, and that was Dundee last year. I mean, Dundee never looked like doing anything in the League Cup campaign really, and this year that's all changed. But once if they do qualify, that once the bigger teams come in, and that's where you'll really see whether or not they're kicking on. But the league campaign's the most important thing. It has to be. And it's going to be a rush to get everybody sort of up and running for the new season. But I think we're sort of improving incrementally, and I'm reasonably happy with the way things are going. Yeah.
Is there anyone else, Robin, who's impressed you so far in these 2 games?
Well, Joe Bevan, who looked very raw last year, his lightning pace is tremendous. I know it's been lower league opposition, but he's played really well. He's scored 2 goals. He's certainly an outball for Dundee, and he may well step in Congreve's shoes from last year. They don't have a replacement for Tony Egan, but I think Charlie Riley stepped up, very well too. So. I think it's good. It's promising signs when you've got guys already in the squad that are sort of playing better than last year and are pushing for a place. So it'll be interesting to see what the final selection will be once everybody's fit, because there's 3 or 4 still out injured.
Looking at the season as a whole, then George, what should Dundee's fans' expectation be? What do you think the expectations are? Looking at it, I suppose, hope as kind of a hopeful expectation, but also, on the other hand, a realistic expectation.
Well, they finished 8th last season, so I think a realistic expectation is that they improve upon that. I do think, looking at the way things are shaping up, and it's fairly impossible to tell at this point in the year, but I think top 6 might be available for a team that gets things right. I think there might be a spot there if Dundee can really kick on and, as I say, get things spot on. So that's always a target for Dundee to try and break into that top 6. It's very, very difficult, but I think that's a possibility. I think just improving upon last season and not having having to wait until December before your season really starts, and you kind of let all the other teams get a run on you, and you have to catch up. So I think if they can have a fairly consistent season, I think they can certainly improve upon last year and maybe knock on that top 6.
Yeah, Robin, what are you expecting? Is that top 6 spot kind of would you look back on that and say, yeah, that's been a really good season? Yeah,
I think top 6 has to be an aim for them. Falkirk might struggle. Traditionally the second season is difficult for newly promoted clubs. Falkirk might struggle. They had a great season last year, but Dundee should be looking to go to try and get top 6. If they didn't get top 6, it wouldn't be disastrous, but it would probably be the fans would be hoping that they would be able to push on and get top 6, because we never quite broke away from the bottom places last year till the very end. So it was always a sort of sword of Damocles hanging over your head that they could be dragged into the playoff places. So I think that's realistic to go for top 6. But of course, there's a lot of other clubs in Dundee's position round about them last year will be looking, aiming for exactly the same thing. So it's going to be difficult.
Right, well, before we go, let's get some quickfire predictions from both of you. I've done quite a few of these now, and people have yet to keep it brief. So I'm kind of hoping you guys will change that. So a couple of questions, just keep your answers as brief as possible. One word if you can. If not, I'll give you a couple more. But I'll come to you first, George. Where are Dundee going to finish this season?
Maybe wildly optimistic, but I'll say 6th.
I like wildly optimistic. Robin, what do you think?
6th.
Oof.
Who, George, do you think will be Dundee's Player of the Year?
We'll go Ethan Hamilton again.
Robin?
Owen Bevan.
Oh, I like it.
I've had mixed responses to this question. New kit, George. Do we like it? Do we hate it?
Home kit, I think, is an improvement on last season. I really like it. Nice and simple. The away kit, a lot of people love it. It's not for me.
Robin?
I'll plead the 5th because I'm colourblind.
Well, the home kit's dark blue, Robin, so that's a good start.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Here you go, learn something new every day. Right. How sugary is the manager's peg, George?
It's Dundee, so you can never say it's absolutely cemented. But I think it's pretty strong. Yeah, I think he's okay.
Robin?
Okay, yep.
A kind of half in, half out peg.
No, I think it's more than that. I think he's in good shape. But it's Dundee, so you
can never be too certain. And finally, one word, George, how do you feel about the new season for Dundee?
I'll go surprising. I think it might surprise some people.
Robin?
Mildly. That's what I'm saying, mildly. Because I can't get 2 words in.
That's relatively optimistic. It's more optimistic than I thought you both would be. So it's a good start. Right, well, that is all we've got time for. Many thanks to George and Robin, and thank you very much for listening. Remember, we are doing preview episodes for each Premiership team, so check them out on our feed if you get a chance. And to keep up to speed with everything you need to know about the national game, and to be alerted when new episodes are out, subscribe to the Scottish Football Podcast on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone settings. Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.